Welcome back to Politics Nation. Folks, it happened again. Mitt Romney opened his mouth, and the truth fell out. His latest truth saying we don't need more firefighters, cops, and teachers. Today, he wants to pretend it never happened.
Do you think your comments about firefighters and cops were taken out of context?
Sorry?
Do you think your comments about firefighters were taken out of context?
Ignore the media. Great plan. Earlier today, he told Fox News it was, quote, absurd to say he supported fewer teachers and firefighters, even though his own words showed the opposite.
He wants another stimulus. He wants to hire more government workers. He says we need more firemen, more policemen, more teachers. It's time for us to cut back on government and help the American people.
These views are absurd and frankly immoral because the middle class is hurting more than ever. Today we learned that the Bush recession caused the median wealth of the American family to fall 39% between 2007 and 2010. Joining me now, Joan Walsh, editor-at-large of Salon.com, and Jared Bernstein, MSNBC contributor and former chief economist for Vice President Joe Biden. Joan, let me start with you. Is all this a simple misunderstanding, or did Willard come out with the truth of how he feels and admits he wants fewer firefighters, fewer cops, fewer teachers?
He told the truth, and then he got rebuked even by Scott Walker, Reverend Al, and then he decided to hold up the Etch-a-Sketch and shake it and hope he could change the history and hope he could get rid of those tapes that you keep playing, and it's not going to work. I mean, it's ignorant on one level because he says, well, the federal government doesn't hire cops and firefighters. Actually, the federal government provides millions and millions of dollars that actually do help hire cops and firefighters and teachers. That's one thing.
But he was the one that brought up the president and firefighters and cops and teachers. So how can he turn around and talk about what the federal government doesn't do? He related the president and the federal government to that.
Absolutely. And he is resisting, he's resisting the Jobs Act, which would have provided more federal money to keep those cops and firefighters and teachers on the job. And without that money, more states and cities are going to have to let those middle class workers go. So, it's sort of like it doesn't matter to Mitt what he says. He can shrug it off. He can shake the Etch-a-Sketch. He's not really talking about the real world of middle class families losing jobs and, as we're talking about, losing that net worth in such an incredible, tragic fashion. That's not where his head is at.
Now, Jared, when you look at the report from the Federal Reserve, it shows how badly the Bush recession hurt most Americans. The median wealth of American families fell 38% in just 3 years, matching a level not seen since 1992. 2001 to 2004 went up 1%. 2004 to 2007 went up 17.9%. And 2007 to 2010 went down 38.8%.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking here about net worth, which is just a family's assets minus their debts or their liabilities. And when you're talking about the median family, middle-class households, what's their most valuable asset? These are not folks who are clipping bond coupons or trading stocks in equity markets. Their most valuable asset is their home. And 3/4 of that almost 40% decline in their real net worth from 2007 to 2010 was a loss in the value of their home. Now, some of that was inflated on the way up, no question about it. But the damage done by this housing bubble, inflated by the kind of stuff we know is going on financial markets, is incredibly clear in this report. It also helps explain why the recovery has been such a slog. When families lose that much of their net worth, it's going to take them a while to start getting back on their feet.
And it's going to take a lot longer for them to spend and the economy to pick up that way, as well as these are the same policies that Mr. Romney is saying. We've played over and over on this show where one of his spokespeople talk about we're going to do what Bush did. But at the same time, though, that we're seeing this decline with the middle class, Joan, the rich actually went up. The report showed the middle class bore the brunt of the economic hit, with the middle class, 60% of the country, seeing the greatest losses. The top 10% actually saw their net worth increase. And as we look at this chart, except for the top 10%, it actually went up. Everyone else went down. And we're being told to continue giving them tax cuts, continue giving them more. It will trickle down to us by and by when the morning comes, Joan.
When the morning comes, when the sun comes up. I don't know when, Reverend Al, but right. That is what we're being told. And it's really tragic because, as Jared says, mainly we're talking about homes. And Mitt Romney is the man who said we should let the foreclosure process work faster and just give those homes back to the banks. So there's a part of people's hearts that are in their homes, but there's also, these are people who are now not able to afford college education. These are people who are, some of them are not able to afford basics.
But that's why I'm raising it, and I'll let you finish, because that's why this statement he's making about firefighters and teachers and cops is so important, because they are the middle class. That's who we're talking about.
Right. We're cutting their jobs. We're cutting those jobs at the same time as those are probably the same people who've seen their security diminish because their houses are worth so much less. So, they're being come at in both directions, and it's really hard to watch.
Jared?
Let me just amplify part of what you and Joan are talking about here, because I think it does explain a lot about the way Governor Romney views the economy. What you don't hear in any of his rhetoric, or what you don't see in any of his plans, and I've combed through them, I've talked to his economists, is any recognition of the largest market failure since the Great Depression. The idea that the government doesn't hire cops and firefighters, you and Joan were just talking about that, that is patently false in the context of recession. One of the most effective parts of the Recovery Act was fiscal relief to the states that enabled them to retain hundreds of thousands of jobs. So when Governor Romney says that, it's suggesting he really doesn't understand, A, the magnitude of the market failure, what it's done to our families and our communities, and B, government as a tool to offset that kind of contraction while it's ongoing. Now, the president continues to try to promote this idea. Not big government, not government should always be in the business of creating these jobs, but looking at the reality of the residual from the Great Recession and trying to do something about it. What we hear Mitt Romney say seems deeply out of touch with that reality.
Joan Walsh and Jared Bernstein, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Still ahead, breaking news in the Florida voter purge. The Justice Department files a lawsuit to block that state's illegal attack on voter rights.